Welcome to this short service for the second Sunday of Easter, a reflection on the walk to Emmaus.
See what a morning, see what a morning, gloriously bright, with the dawning of hope in Jerusalem. Folded the grave clothes, tomb filled with light, as the angels announce Christ is risen. See God's salvation plan. Of days, through the Spirit who clothes faith with certainty, honor and blessing, glory and praise to the King, crowned with power and authority. And we are raised with Him. Death is dead, love has won, Christ is conquered. Shall reign with Him, for He lives. Christ is risen from the dead, and we are raised with Him. Death is dead, love has won, Christ is conquered. And we shall reign with Him, for He lives. Christ is risen from the dead.
Luke chapter 24, verses 13 to 34. The walk to Emmaus. That same day, 2 of Jesus' followers were walking to the village of Emmaus, 7 miles from Jerusalem. As they walked along, they were talking about everything that had happened. As they talked and discussed these things, Jesus himself suddenly came and began walking with them, but God kept them from recognizing him. He asked them, "What are you discussing so intently as you walk along?" They stopped short, sadness written across their faces. Then one of them, Cleopas, replied, "You must be the only person in Jerusalem who hasn't heard about all the things that have happened there the last few days." "What things?" Jesus asked. "The things that happened to Jesus, the man from Nazareth," they said. "He was a prophet who did powerful miracles, and he was a mighty teacher in the eyes of God and all the people. But our leading priests and other religious leaders handed him over to be condemned to death, and they crucified him. We had hoped he was the Messiah who had come to rescue Israel. This all happened 3 days ago. Then some women from our group of his followers were at his tomb early this morning, and they came back with an amazing report. They said his body was missing, and they had seen angels who told them Jesus is alive. Some of our men ran out to see, and sure enough, his body was gone, just as the woman had said. Then Jesus said to them, "You foolish people, you find it so hard to believe all that the prophets wrote in the scriptures. Wasn't it clearly predicted that the Messiah would have to suffer all these things before entering his glory?" Then Jesus took them through the writings of Moses and all the prophets, explaining from all the scriptures the things concerning himself. By this time they were nearing Emmaus and the end of their journey. Jesus acted as if he were going on, but they begged him, "Stay the night with us, since it's getting late." So he went home with them. As they sat down to eat, he took the bread and blessed it. Then he broke it and gave it to them. Suddenly their eyes were opened, and they recognized him. And at that moment he disappeared. They said to each other, "Didn't our hearts burn within us as he talked with us on the road and explained the scriptures to us?" And within the hour they were on their way back to Jerusalem. There they found the 11 disciples and the others who had gathered with them, who said, "The Lord has really risen. He appeared to Peter."
The Road to Emmaus story in Luke's Gospel is one of my favourite passages in the Bible. I love it for several reasons. It's a story I can find myself in. I can relate to the experiences. The story lends itself to our human encounters of journeying, discussing happenings, exploring what they mean and searching for answers. And the story has been used as a basis for a retreat called Walk to Emmaus, which is a 3-day exploration of our journey along our road of Christian faith, a movement that I've been privileged to be part of for many years. But above all, I love this story because it's real, it's grounded, and it's accessible. It ends in the breaking of the bread. And that is core to our faith as Christians, that we can receive Christ in the bread and wine. The Walk to Emmaus story that Luke tells us so beautifully is a story about each one of us coming closer to realising who Jesus is for us, what it means to encounter the risen Christ, what it means to live with the risen Christ in our lives. So let's take a look at the story for ourselves. It takes place on a late afternoon, the evening of Easter Sunday, just days after their leader has been crucified, and earlier that morning the women had seen an angel telling them he's not here, he's risen. And in Luke's account, we don't have any personal encounter with Christ at this point in the story. They are simply told to go and tell the disciples what has happened. When someone tries to tell me something unbelievable, I rarely believe what they say. Kind of need to see it for myself, understand it for myself, so I can sympathise with the disciples who don't seem to buy it immediately. Peter goes rushing out of the tomb, then goes home amazed. But the rest of them, I suspect, were still scratching their heads. How can this be? What's happened? It made no sense. Then Luke takes us straight to the end of the day, when Cleopas and another set off to Emmaus, to their home. It is thought that Cleopas might have been Jesus' uncle, Joseph's brother. And the other companion could have been his son, Simeon, could have been his wife, possibly one of the women that went into the tomb, and could have been Luke himself, because the account is so graphic, it's almost told in the first person. Whoever the companions are, Jesus joins them on the road, and they don't recognise him. And why should they? They were not expecting him to be there. And they don't have street lights or torches lighting up the pathways in those days, so they're all walking on a dusk evening and the light is fading, and they're joined by a stranger. Given the events of the day, anyone passing would want to join in their conversation, and they probably welcomed the opportunity to share their thoughts, as you do when you're excited or worried about something. You kind of need to get it out. And Jesus steps in on cue. He seems to be the only one in Jerusalem who didn't know the gossip of the day's events. And he listens to their story. And then he scolds them for not believing what the prophets had foretold. And then he goes on to unpack the whole story of the Old Testament to them about him. They get close to their home and Jesus goes to walk on, but they urge him strongly to come and stay with them as the evening is close. Was there something about this stranger that they felt drawn to? They can't have felt afraid of him, or they would not have invited him in. Something made them urge him strongly to come and stay with them. He enters the house, sits at the table, takes the bread, blesses it, breaks it, and shares it with them. And it is at that moment, in the breaking of the bread, that they realise who has been their companion all the time. Then their eyes were opened, they recognised him, and he vanished from their sight. The realisation of the risen Christ appearing to them was huge. Were not our hearts burning within us while he was talking to us on the road, while he was opening up the scriptures to us, they say, on reflection? Their Emmaus Road experience, their hearts burning, was the encounter they needed in order to believe for themselves that Christ had risen and was alive. Alive! So they rushed back to the 11 and their companions back in Jerusalem. It's 7 miles away. That's just about a mile or so less than from here to Congleton. That's not close. And when they get back, the 11 are saying, "The Lord has risen indeed, and he's appeared to Simon," which is the resurrection appearance to Simon Peter that we don't read about, when we know here afterwards of the effect it had on the other disciples. And so our 2 companions from Emmaus tell them their story and how Jesus had been made known to them in the breaking of the bread. How he had been made known to them in the breaking of the bread. I wonder, where are you in this story? Where are you? You might be with the 11 and their companions in Jerusalem, still bemused by what has happened, a little afraid, unsure perhaps. An empty tomb, what can that mean? Doesn't make any sense, does it? Perhaps you're there, not yet on the road of exploration, but in a place of doubt and fear. For it can't be true, can it? Maybe you are one of the companions on the road heading home, needing time to reflect all that has happened, processing what has happened, journeying on foot slowly, but keen to share the story when a stranger joins you. Sharing in conversation, not sure where it will lead, but discussing nevertheless. We come to church to hear the scriptures read and explored. We go to house groups to converse on matters of faith, belief, questions and discussions, all are part of our journeys. And in our lives, we can choose to sit back and unpick at truths we don't fully understand. Or perhaps we can be open up to seeking understanding. Are you one of those travellers on the road, reflecting on events that have happened, trying to piece the jigsaw together to find understanding and meaning? Perhaps you are, and perhaps you're not alone. Maybe you're stood at the door, you felt something, you're not sure what, and you're considering inviting this stranger in. Something about the conversations you've been having has moved you a little, don't want him to leave, at least not yet. So you stood at the door, urging him to stay a while. We get those niggles and nudges, don't we? That sense that God is a little closer than we think. And sometimes we allow the voices that take over when we get to that door, and then we don't invite him in because the voices are of other distractions and life are louder. Or we don't invite him for fear of upsetting those other voices. It's often why folks say we encounter God easier in spaces away from the everyday, away from life's distractions, because God doesn't have to compete with those other voices of the world, and he gets our full attention. Perhaps you are standing at that door, wanting him to come in and sit at your table. Do you want to know Christ a little better? Can you allow Christ to come closer just for a little while and sit with him? The beauty about this story is that wherever you are in it, Jesus is there too. whether you are still back in Jerusalem, whether you are the companions on the road, or whether you are on the door, waiting to welcome him in. Wherever you are in that journey, Jesus is there with you too. And it's a really powerful thought that wherever we find ourselves in life, Christ is alongside us. Remember, Matthew concluded his gospel with the words, "I am with you always, to the end of the age." And of all the I am signs that we have in John's gospel, the I am statement that we have at the end of Matthew's gospel says it all for me. I am, Yahweh, God, is with me always until the end of the age. As we go through life, we have what I like to call Emmaus moments. Moments where we encounter the risen Christ for ourselves. Moments that we treasure, no two ever the same. I've had them in my life. I've had them at times of difficulty and challenge, and I've had them at times of joy where I've really sensed that Christ was stood beside me. They're Emmaus moments. They're a glimpse of understanding what it means to believe in the risen Christ. I am, God is with us to the end of the age. We know that to be real because of what happened that first Easter Sunday. We know that to be real because of the resurrection. Now Christ lives without any boundary of flesh to hold him back. Now he really can be with us always, all places, all times, to all people, to the end of the age. And our call as Christians is to journey along our Emmaus roads, moving from doubt to realization, step by step for ourselves, from despair to joy, from a state of hopelessness to a state of hopefulness, from a state of not understanding to having a glimmer of understanding. Christ with us on all our journeys, just waiting for us to realize he is there. Were not our hearts burning within us as we walked along the road? Realize for ourselves, Jesus is alive, present, and waiting for your heart to burn with that sense of affirmation that he is risen. He is risen indeed. And so we pray, risen Christ, for recognizing you in the scriptures, for recognizing you in the breaking of bread, for finding you in the stranger, we give you thanks. Risen Christ, for times of doubt and struggle, for times of confusion and chaos, for times of wrestling for a blessing, for times of a glimmer of understanding, we give you thanks. For thankfully, you are present in darkness and in doubt, in every corner of our lives, in every place in our world. For you have gone before us. Risen Christ of the Emmaus Road, come as we walk the lonely path and be our companion. Come when life mystifies and perplexes. Come into our disappointments and unease. Come at table where we share bread and hope. And coming, open our eyes to recognize you. Risen Christ, we give you thanks. Amen.
I serve a risen Savior, He's in the world today. I know that He is living, whatever men may say. I see His hand of mercy, I hear His voice of cheer, and just the time I need Him, He's always near. He lives, He lives, Christ Jesus lives today. He walks with me and talks with me along life's narrow way. He lives, salvation to impart. You ask me how I know He lives. He lives within my heart. In all the world around me, I see His loving care. And though my heart grows weary, I never will despair. I know that He is leading through all the stormy blast. The day of His appearing will come at last. He lives, Christ Jesus lives today. He walks with me and talks with me along life's narrow way. He lives, salvation to impart. You ask me how I know He lives. He lives within my heart. Rejoice, rejoice, O Christian, lift up your voice and sing eternal hallelujahs to Jesus Christ the King, the hope of all who seek Him, the help of all who find. None other is so loving, so good and kind. He lives, Christ Jesus lives today. He walks with me and talks with me along life's narrow way. He lives, salvation to impart. You ask me how I know He lives. He lives within my heart.
Siso hambanaye, wo wo wo, siso hambanaye. Siso hambanaye, wo wo wo, siso hambanaye. Kunsha wenja bula, siso hambanaye. Kunsha wenja bula, siso hambanaye. Siso hambanaye, wo wo wo, siso hambanaye. Siso hambanaye, wo wo wo, siso hambanaye. Kunsha wenja bula, siso hambanaye. Kunsha wenja bula, siso hambanaye. We will walk with God, my brothers, we will walk with God. We will walk with God, my sisters, we will walk with God. We will go rejoicing till the kingdom has come. We will go rejoicing till the kingdom has come. We will walk with God, my brothers, we will walk with God. We will walk with God, my sisters, we will walk